Welcome to the Upside Journal podcast. In 2026, the gap between process managers and intelligence architects is widening. Today, we're breaking down the new operational leadership model, how to orchestrate human agent teams for maximum impact. We're going to dive into what actually separates the organizations just playing around with AI from those fundamentally rewiring their operational DNA. Because, let's be real, simply bolting AI onto your legacy systems, it just doesn't work. We literally need a completely new playbook for this. And that's exactly what we are unpacking in this explainer today.
All right, so here is our roadmap for today's briefing. We've got 5 main acts to cover. We'll kick things off with the pivot to intelligence architecture. Then we hit the 5 principles of this new leadership style. After that, we get into the nuts and bolts of the human agent model. Act 4 explores something really fascinating called the diaspora advantage. And finally, we'll wrap up with a highly practical 90-day reset so you can actually take action right away. Let's get right into it.
Act 1, the pivot. This is all about the massive, fundamental transition from traditional process management over to intelligence architecture. Okay, we have to establish an undeniable reality right out of the gate here. The era of simply managing human execution, yeah, that's over. Done. We are moving away from traditional systems of record and diving headfirst into systems of action, where AI doesn't just recommend a task, it actually initiates it on its own. Think back to the 2019 playbook. Remember that? A process manager's main job was essentially optimizing human bottlenecks. You built a team, you designed a process, you managed the people. Pretty straightforward. But now, shift your mindset to the 2026 playbook. Enter the intelligence architect. Now you're dealing with autonomous agents that are executing tasks and generating outputs that a human might literally never even see. Think about that for a second. The bottlenecks aren't just human anymore. They are architectural. The errors we face are systemic. So your job now is to optimize governance layers and data pipelines, meticulously orchestrating exactly where agents hand off the baton to human judgment. And this brings us to a huge risk that operations leaders face today: accidental authority. This happens when systems just start acting without any systematic accountability or a clear chain of custody. Think about your modern enterprise stack right now. Machines are already making high-stakes calls in mere milliseconds. They might be isolating network devices, blocking multi-million-dollar transactions, or even rerouting global shipments before a human analyst ever gets an alert on their dashboard. Crazy, right? Well, if you develop these capabilities in isolated little silos, those decisions completely bypass the traditional management chain. They emerge from the intelligence layer unchecked. If you don't have a dedicated architecture to govern this flow, you aren't innovating. You're just creating a terrifying new kind of automated bureaucracy. You're granting authority completely by accident rather than by design. And that is a recipe for absolute disaster. Moving on to Act 2, the 5 principles. Because while the structural architecture is completely shifting, the immutable laws of leadership, they remain constant. Let's look at how AI actually stress tests those foundational pillars.
As an intelligence architect, you must prioritize outcome definition above literally everything else. Principle 1, outcome clarity precedes process clarity. Look, autonomous agents executing the wrong workflow at scale, they're going to produce wrong outcomes infinitely faster than a human ever could. So you have to obsess over problem framing. Second, you've got to measure outcomes, not just agent reporting. It is such a massive trap to optimize for the metrics that AI can easily count. Don't fall for it. Third, trust requires transparency and explainability. If you treat your AI like a magic black box, you are going to lose the trust of your board and your customers, period. Fourth, feedback-driven learning absolutely beats execution pace. Basically, treat every autonomous workflow as a live, breathing experiment. And finally, number 5, and this is a big one, protect human-exclusive work relentlessly. There's a brilliant insight here that captures the ultimate discipline of the modern operator. Great operational leaders delegate everything that can be systematized so that their human capacity is concentrated on the 20% of decisions that determine 80% of outcomes. It's the classic Pareto principle, but supercharged for the AI era, protecting time for human judgment, ethics, creative problem solving, and relationship intelligence. That is absolutely critical. You delegate the sheer volume of work to the agents so you can elevate the value of the humans. It really is that simple.
All right, Act 3, the human agent model. How do we actually practically orchestrate all this distributed agency and ensure we have real governance by design?
To answer that, we have to talk about something called the accountability horizon. Now, the math behind this concept is pretty complex, but the core premise is actually quite simple. Traditional leadership assumes you can always trace a mistake back to a specific identifiable human. Bob messed up the spreadsheet. But once AI agents start adapting and learning from each other and from human responses in real time, it becomes mathematically impossible to point the finger at one person. You cross this horizon where traditional, single-point accountability just completely breaks down. And here's the kicker. It cannot be fixed with more audits or more management oversight. The architecture itself fundamentally has to change.
This is where your system topology matters just as much as autonomy. Consider a standard feed-forward setup. An AI agent generates an output, a human reviews it, and a decision is made. Simple. There's no feedback loop going back to the agent. This setup, it's safe, it's always governable. But contrast that with a feedback cycle system. This is where it gets spicy. Here, the AI agent is continuously observing and adapting to human responses. Imagine an AI overrides a physician to reallocate hospital resources, and then it literally learns from the physician's subsequent actions to make future calls. If there's a bad outcome, who is accountable? The machine, the doctor, the developer? This presence of mixed feedback cycles is exactly what determines if your governance is actually feasible in the real world.
So, how do we practically manage this beast? We implement what we call the operating model standard. Leaders have to shift from executing tasks to steering outcomes. It's a three-step dance: delegate, review, own. First, you explicitly delegate the objectives, the constraints, and the success criteria to your agents. Second, you review the agent outputs at rigidly defined checkpoints. This is where you apply all that juicy contextual nuance that the agent completely lacks. And finally, you own the results. Humans must retain ultimate accountability for outcomes. This model perfectly preserves human agency while safely letting your agents run autonomously. To successfully run one of these hybrid teams, you absolutely must create a clean division of labor between value creation and throughput. The human team's core focus: strategy, ethics, and exception management. Their superpower capabilities are contextual nuance, relationship intelligence, and deep judgment. Meanwhile, the AI agents, their focus is purely execution, real-time reporting, and sheer scale. They handle the pattern recognition, flagging real-time anomalies, and sustaining crazy high-volume throughput. Think of it this way. The agent is the tireless, high-horsepower engine, but the human is the steering wheel.
That brings us to Act 4, the diaspora advantage. What kind of leader is actually perfectly suited for this new era? Interestingly, the answer has way less to do with coding skills and everything to do with cultural translation.
Think about this. Operators who grew up navigating multiple systems, cultures, and contexts possess a massive, distinct structural advantage right now. Consider the African diaspora operator running businesses across, say, London, Lagos, and Washington. They are already managing distributed teams across wildly different regulatory environments and massive context gaps. They are completely fluent in translating the strict institutional language of Western capital markets into the messy, ground-level operational realities of emerging economies. Sound familiar? They have essentially been practicing the exact translation and framing skills required for human agent team management for years. The rare ability to hold multiple operational frameworks in your head simultaneously and smoothly translate between high-context and low-context environments, that is precisely what orchestrating AI models demands today. It's a real game-changer.
And finally, Act 5, the 90-day leadership reset. Because awareness is great, but we need action. Let's move from theory to a highly practical, operator-grade playbook to permanently shift your organization's architecture over the next quarter.
Here is your chronological timeline. In days 1 to 30, you must map your operational reality. Audit your current workflows to identify exactly what is human-executed, what is tool-assisted, and what is fully automated. You have to find these things before they turn into those accidental authorities we warned you about earlier. Then, in days 31 to 60, design one intelligent workflow. Just one. Pick a single, high-volume process, explicitly define the agent versus human responsibilities, and build ironclad escalation paths. Finally, days 61 to 90, extract learning and expand. Review the outcomes, meticulously document exactly where human judgment added disproportionate value, and then prepare to scale that model.
Let's drill into the actual technical execution of that reset. Step 1. Audit all tasks and formally sort them into 3 buckets: human-only, agent-only, or hybrid. No gray areas here. Step 2. Establish a Supreme Court protocol. Disagreements between a veteran manager's gut instinct and a machine's data are completely inevitable, and they get messy fast. You need crystal clear rules established up front for exactly who wins when they clash. Step 3. Decouple decision logic from your core transaction systems. This is huge. If you separate the logic from the execution, your intelligence layer evaluates context under unified rules. That ensures your critical human checkpoints are literally never bypassed. So, as the gap between process managers and intelligence architects continues to widen, you have to ask yourself a really tough question. Which side of the accountability horizon is your organization going to land on? Great leadership in the AI era requires deliberate practice. If you are ready to architect your operation for the next decade, subscribe to the Upside Journal for institutional-grade operator playbooks. Read the full analysis at theupsidejournal.com. See you in the next Daily Drop.